Right everyone, something new for 2024. I'm going to start focusing a lot more on longer form content. As some of you will know, I've spent a lot of time on Instagram sharing a lot of this solo practice journey through short form video. And that's been great, but what it doesn't allow me to do is share the actual real-time realities of being a solo architect working from this studio. I'd really love the opportunity to share more of that, more of my daily life here, and hope that some of you are interested in that. So I'm just squaring up the studio after the weekend, and I'm about to start a brand new project, which is a really unique one actually. The local authority has commissioned me to undertake a feasibility study on 2 Grade 2 listed telephone boxes to establish their existing condition, but also concept designs for their future reuse. So it's time for a coffee before we head out to site, and I thought this could be a really good opportunity to introduce you guys to how I work and how I might approach a commission like this one. To be honest, I've been waiting for a few weeks to be able to get out onto site to do external works and external surveys. The weather's just been so bad in Wales the last few weeks that it hasn't been possible. But today we've got really good weather. The only trade-off is that it's freezing cold, but that's always better than rain. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this commission. It's a really unique one, and if you live in Britain, I'm sure you'll be aware of the significance of the red telephone kiosks, but a brief history on those is that they're 20th century, iconic British structures for housing public telephones. They went through a series of different design iterations, starting in the early 20th century and leading up to the late 20th century. The iterations were K1, K2, and so on. And the K2 was the first telephone kiosk to go out to a design competition, and it was won by Sir Giles Gilbert Scott. And that is the birth of the iconic red cast iron telephone box that we see in Britain today. But there were many iterations after that were looking at standardization and cost effectiveness. And the ones that I'm actually looking at today is the K6, which is the most common telephone box. These are built in cast iron, and there were tens of thousands of these rolled out across the nation in cities and also villages. But of course, come the end of the 20th century and certainly into the 21st century, the rise of the mobile phone has meant that the public telephone box sort of fell into disuse and have been sort of increasingly declining since. And this is a challenge that's faced many communities across the nation. How do we actually repurpose these telephone boxes to protect the significant heritage that they still hold, certainly socially and culturally, but find new uses that mean that they can be sustainably repaired and maintained as part of our communities and offer something actually meaningful back? So that is really what this commission is entirely about. And it's an exciting challenge as an architect, and one I'm really keen to get into. So the way a feasibility is structured to look at this is that there's 2 key parts to it. The first is to establish the existing condition and the cost to bring the telephone boxes back into a suitable, safe, weatherproof condition and to restore them. And secondly, it's then to look at options for their reuse as part of the local regeneration plans. So I'll just finish making this coffee, which is quite a long-winded process, but I do enjoy it in the morning. And then we'll get into looking at the brief and visiting the site. So I'm just checking the brief before I head out. Today I'm focusing on part 1, which is the condition survey component of the feasibility study. So what's needed is a full condition survey to identify the repairs required to make the telephone boxes safe, secure, wind and weatherproof. Photographs of the telephone boxes focusing on the repairs identified and outline the condition or issues associated with the phone boxes, highlighting those that need immediate attention. And all of that is to be combined with a draft cost schedule, which I'll be working with local specialists to establish a costed schedule of repairs. So in terms of what I actually need to take, I think it's pretty minimal really. I need obviously my camera for the photography, but it's really going to be tape, laser, and the iPad to take some photographs and sketch over and to capture the dimensions for the measured survey. So finish the coffee and let's get into it. So we're on site, and as you can see, it was only a short walk up the hill from the studio. And what we have is two K6 red telephone boxes, but they are in very poor condition. Lots of repairs required. You can see there's lots of corrosion, missing glazing, quite a lot to document actually, so we'll have to be rigorous with going around this inch by inch and documenting all the repairs required to bring them back into, well, to restore them really back to their former glory, and then explore what the reuse options may be. But they are in quite a challenging site here because it's like a leftover area off of the highway and has been a bit of a gathering area for debris. I'm not actually sure how well rainwater is draining from this area either. There's a lot of sand cement sort of haunching around the bottom to try and direct rainwater away, but how that's serving the base of these is a bit of a question at the moment. So yeah, let's get into it and start documenting first of all the measured survey and then the repairs required. So the first thing I'm going to do is progress the measured building survey, and what I usually do here is take a series of photographs of all elevations, and that will allow me to drop those into Procreate and sketch over them with the dimensions of each profile, with the overall height, width, etc. And I found that to be the most effective way of being able to capture measured building surveys on site, particularly in situations like this where they're not necessarily buildings, but they're small structures, of course. So we'll open those in Procreate and start tracing over. So what I've got is the photograph open in Procreate, and we'll now just start taking key dimensions of these. They are identical apart from the way in which they sit on the hill here in terms of their heights above the pavement level. So a lot of this will be identical to both of them. We'll just start adding the dimensions directly onto a photo in a different layer, and it's quite a quick way of being able to document this. So we're just going to do this for all elevations, all of the key details, all of the key profile widths. I've got all the key dimensions captured on the elevations. I'm now going to take all the internal dimensions. Notice particularly this door is incredibly stiff on the hinges there. Okay. So we'll capture all of these dimensions of the profiles, the glazing bars, and we'll document later all of the repairs required, but you'll see that clearly there's some detail in that makes these weatherproof, and we want to be able to capture that in our sections. So we'll continue with the same process and just carry on taking photographs and marking up how these details work. Take these key measurements. So given the condition of these, I'm actually thinking I'm going to take all of these measurements and go back to the studio, draw up the existing measured survey drawings of each of them, and then return with those. So it's an hour or so later, and I've taken all the measured survey drawings, and I could have carried on taking photographs and marking up all the fabric repair drawings, but there's actually a lot of repairs to mark up, and given that we're so close to the studio, I thought I'd come back with these measured survey markups and prepare a series of accurate elevation sections, interior elevations of these, and then go back to the site and use those as the basis for forming the fabric condition survey, sort of annotating over the top of accurate base drawings. It's just going to make my life a bit easier, and it's going to be easier to record on site. So given that we're so close to the studio, why not? I'm going to crack on now with producing these drawings. Okay, it's a good few hours later now. It's actually into the mid-evening. I've just been carried away with a bit of a drafting session, but I'm really pleased with progress on the measured survey drawings. We now have a series of existing record drawings in plan, section and elevation of both kiosks, and I've produced these based on the dimensions we took on site, but also with some assistance from some online component drawings that are available for the K6 kiosk, which have been really helpful. But what I've now produced are a series of drawings to quite a good level of detail that identify each component part and understands how they work. So how the corner posts work and relate to the door, and how they relate to the screens with their glazing bars. So I feel like that level of detail is important for this project for two reasons. The first is that we now need to produce a series of fabric condition drawings that produce a schedule of repairs alongside them. And the way in which these kiosks work is that they've been designed in a kit of parts. So each of these component parts can be purchased online from specialist suppliers. So by understanding what each of these components are, I can now take these drawings back to site and quantify what components are missing and what components are there, but they actually need to be sensitively repaired. So that's the first reason. But secondly, I just feel like it's essential to understand how things go together, whether it be a structure like this or a building. And by learning through drawing today, I now feel like I have a really good understanding of, how these are intended to work, how they're weatherproofed, how they're designed to be robust enough to serve public use. So for the next stage, where we're designing reuse options, that'll almost certainly require insertions inside the kiosks or in or around the kiosks. And understanding how these go together will now allow me to appreciate how new fabric can sensitively interface with the existing kiosks. So in the next episode, I'm going to plot these and take them to site to capture the fabric repairs, and then show you how I compose a series of fabric condition drawings for these kiosks, but also it'll have parallels with how I do it for actual buildings. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.